G'day guys, today we are going to look at a couple of 36 volt belt sanders, and because that's such a special occasion I went out and I got some new tabless batteries. So we've got a tabless 4 amp hour 36 volt battery for the Hikoki. Well, it's actually a Metabo HPT, and I've got another new Makita one as well. So this is nice fair test. They're going to only have one charge each at the beginning of this test, and so it'll be a good test, see how these two belt sanders go against each other. I've also got a bunch of belts in the background over there. The first belt sander, which I have actually reviewed before, I reviewed the Hikoki one. This is the Metabo HPT one, exactly the same tool. This is what it's called in North America, and the rest of the world it's called a Hikoki. It is a 36 volt brushless belt sander, 76 by 533 millimeters or 3 inches by 21 inch, and we are going to be putting that up against, oh, it's not there. Right here, there should have been a Makita BS001G 40 volt belt sander. It is also, we'll put this here in place of it. It also takes the same size belt, 76 by 533 millimeters or 3 inch by 21 inch. And DHL have not gotten it to me when they said they would, and I'm chomping at the bit to make this video. And it was meant to be here on Friday. It's now Saturday. I'm not going to get it presumably until at least Monday now. So what do I do until then? Well, if you don't know too much about tabless cells, and I'm guessing a lot of people still don't because it's pretty new, we know what cells are in this battery, but we don't know what cells are in this battery as far as I'm aware. If you want to know in depth what the difference is between a tabless cell and a tabbed cell, take a look at this video up in the top corner and down in the description. It's a long video where I pull the tabs apart and show you what they look like. Pull the tabs apart? Pull the cells apart and show you what they look like on the inside. And it does get a little bit spicy. One of the cells may have gone a bit rogue on me and flown around the room. So that's up there, down there, depending on what device you're watching this on. Now, if you want to know how you tell the difference when you're buying them, I'll get these out of the box and I'll show you the difference. So these are the new tabless batteries, and this is what the original multi-volt battery looked like. So we've gone from that to that. There is also one in between, which kind of looks more like this design, but it's not tabless. To get the tabless one, you need to look out for that on the side. T-Power, or T-Power. And when it comes to the Makita, this is tabless, and a tabbed one looks like that. So the old tabbed ones are blue, the new ones are silver, and the model number has an F on the end. This one does not. This is a BSL36B18, and this is a BSL3640 MVT. What are the advantages of getting a battery with tabless cells over one with good old-fashioned tabbed cells? Well, it comes down mostly to heat and power delivery, because the cells in this battery can fire out the power much quicker. There's less resistance in the battery cells, which I explained in that video down there and down there. I've explained it in several videos now. And so basically they run cooler, they put out more power, so they'll run for basically the same length of time if you chuck it on a fan or something. But if you're using them on high drain devices, you might get more runtime out of it in a way, because they're more efficient, they're going to cut quicker, so you might get a bit more work done. But they'll also run cooler, and in theory, the batteries should last longer overall because you're not having to put so much stress on each individual cell. But time will tell on that one, because this is new technology and all the tool companies are just starting to release them now, so we won't know for another year or two really and whether they are so much better or not. Now, I want to know what cells are in this particular one. There are 3 companies, as far as I'm aware, that make tabless cells at the moment, 21700 tabless cells, and that is Murata, who make the ones in this battery. And then there's Ampace and EVE. So which one are they using in this battery? Seeing as it's a Japanese company, you'd hope that it was Murata, but we'll have a look. Hopefully I won't have to pull it apart as much as I did with an earlier Makita battery, where I had to cut into it and try and find the model numbers and everything on it and destroy the battery somewhat. But anyway, let's take a look inside this battery. In fact, I might make another video on that. So if I've done it, it'll be up here in the top corner and down in the description. Now, I'm going to sit here and wait for my Makita sander to show up, but you're not going to have to wait because it's going to be here right now. First, before we get into stuff, we better charge up these batteries. So when you get a new battery from whatever tool company, they shouldn't be fully charged. So the Hikokis usually have 2 bars like so, and the Makitas will have 1 on the 40 volts. They do that because you don't want to be shipping fully charged batteries because there's more chance of something going wrong. If it does go wrong, it's a bit more explosive when they're fully charged, as you will have seen in recent videos of mine. And the other reason is that it's best to store lithium-ion batteries not at their fully charged capacity, so these may be sitting on shelves in shops or in warehouses for a long period of time, so you don't want the lithium degrading, so they don't charge them right up. Anyway, we're going to charge them right up right now. We'll just check what voltage they get shipped at, just out of curiosity, because some people have asked me some things. So this is a Makita battery checker. If you haven't seen one of these before, take a look up here down in the description, look for battery checker and you'll see some videos on this. So this will tell us what voltage this is at, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Doesn't show up too well on the camera, unfortunately. Let's try it on that angle there. So we've had 0 charges on this battery. It is charged to 25%. Currently at 16 degrees Celsius on the inside. Battery health is good, and it is on 33 volts. Remember, this is a 36 volt battery. Even though it's got 40 volt max on the side, it is exactly the same as this battery. This is a 40 volt max battery too, or 36 volt nominal. Now I can't put that one on here, unfortunately. It'd be nice if I could, but this one we'll have to do old school. Now, because this is also an 18 volt battery, it's a multi-volt battery, it switches between 18 volt and 36 volt depending on what tool you put it on. This is going to come up as 18 volt, isn't it, rather than a yeah, 17.6 volts. So I've tried all different combinations. I can't get it to trigger at 36 volts. So they want it like that because this way they can ship it differently than what they can ship that one. This one doesn't have to be in a special category because it's 2 72 watt batteries, not one 144 watt battery. So it's a little bit of sneaky trickery, which allows them to get away with different shipping rules. But if we assume the other 18 volt pack is the same, then we are looking at what, just over 35 volts. And it's showing 2 bars, and it's, yeah, 35.2 volts basically. Anyway, let's get them charged up so we're ready to hit the ground running when it arrives. 3 days late, but it's finally here, and the batteries have just finished charging. The Hikoki's just come off the charger, which incidentally took a lot longer than the Makita. But anyway, let's now get to what you want to see. In 3, 2, 1. Actually, before we get into racing them, I guess we better see if they're any good at sanding in case I damage them while we race them. And we should probably look at some of the features and specs and that sort of stuff, and what they come with and shit like that. They both come with a dust bag. They both come with 1 sanding belt. They both come with a manual, although one of them takes a little bit longer to get to grips with, depending on where you live. One of them came with this, but I'm guessing it's probably because it came from Japan. And the Metabo / Hikoki one came with this, which goes on your dust extraction if you want to change the angle of your bag or your vac. Weight-wise, the Hikoki or Metabo HPT comes in at 3,497 grams, just under 3.5 kgs. Let's call it 3.5 kgs. And the Makita comes in at, I can feel it's a bit heavier, comes in at 3.85 kgs or 3,853 grams. The pounds, of course, will be over here on the side. And then batteries, see how much difference that makes with these new tabless cells. We've got 977 grams, pounds, and Makita 942. So the Makita slightly lighter, you get a little bit back, but the Makita with the battery on is going to be about 4.8 kgs, and the Metabo or Hikoki will be coming in at about 4.5 kgs, 300 grams more for the Makita. Let's take a look at some of the differences between the two of them now. Now, I've done a video on this before with the Hikoki version, and when I was filming that video and when I was using that tool, I noticed it was just a little bit tippy to the left there. There's a lot of weight on this side, and it just doesn't sit dead flat. It just wants to go over this way. And the Makita, in contrast, just feels a lot more centrally weight balanced, and hopefully that will give a nicer finish, because I found I ended up sort of sanding on a bit of a slope. I wasn't getting it took a bit of practice to sort of pushing your weight the opposite direction all the time, because it just wants to go the other way. Looking at the front of them here, the Makita has a light on it, as you can see, and it's adjustable. The handles are very different, and the battery placement is very different. Battery placement on the Makita directly above the belt, which is good, gives a bit more weight pushing down on it, stops you having to push down on it so much, and stops the weight throwing the balance off anywhere because it's right down on top of the belt. And a very different handle design, and it is movable into 4 separate places, locks in, and then you just wind her up. In that backward position, you can fit on an 8 amp hour battery, which you can't do on the Metabo HPT because this is the biggest battery they make. So you'll get double the runtime if you put that on the Makita. That puts a lot of weight down on your battery, but you can't move the handle. The handle either has to be in this backward position or the very forward position. So it might not be too comfortable to use. You might have to end up putting your hand on the battery. We'll see how that goes. The Metabo HPT or Hikoki has the battery slip on the back, so you got weight sort of in the wrong place. It's just overall not as balanced as the Makita. They're both flush on one side, so you can get hard up against walls and skirting boards and things like that. The Hikoki / Metabo comes in at about just over 150 or 6 inches wide, the widest point. And the Makita, let's see, what do we got? About just under 140. So pretty about 15 millimeters, half an inch-ish, 3/8 of an inch maybe difference between the two of them. The Hikoki or Metabo HPT being the wider one. They are both variable speed, up to number 5 on here, or auto. So if I do recall, the auto on this was quite useful because it just starts off slow, and then once you put the pressure on it, ramps up the torque, which was quite nice. And the Makita also has the speed dial going up to number 5 there, but also something extra that you don't get with the Metabo is the area there for the AWS chip, so that it'll turn on your vac automatically. They both of course have knobs for adjusting the belt. When it comes to the triggers with the Metabo HPT, you just pull the trigger and you go. And then you can lock it in like so by pushing this in from the left or the right, goes both ways. So push it in, lock that, you're now going. You don't have to keep your finger on the trigger. You can hold your hand back here, up here, wherever. Don't have to hold your finger on the trigger. And yeah, no safety, just bang on, off, just like that. Whereas the Makita, slightly different. So it has this little, just that little extra lever there. So when you put your finger on, you need to push that up before you pull the trigger. And if you try and pull the trigger from down there, not going to work. So just that extra little safety thing. After you've been using it for a while, you probably don't even notice it. And then on the other side, I'll have to spin it around. There is the safety lock. So it is designed for right-handed people only. So same deal as the Hikoki. Pull the trigger, push the button in, and it will stay on. Looking at the belt releases, this was something that I never really liked with the Hikoki one when I had it. And it's just a little bit tight. It's quite hard to pull. I mean, you want it tight of course, but it is just a bit trickier to get in there and get it open than the Makita, which has a bigger lever and it's sort of closer to the outside. You don't have to stick your finger in behind it, and it's just dead simple. It's basically spring loaded and just opens for you. Whereas this one, it's like super tight. Different ones might be slightly worse than others, of course, as well. But yeah, getting in there, there's no spring loading there. You've got to do all the work yourself to overcome the other springs. Not a biggie, but if you're changing belts all the time, Makita one definitely superior, as long as it doesn't come loose, of course. Let's take the belts off and have a look at how things are going underneath here. So, belt off, we have a nice shiny stainless pad. Might not be stainless, but anyway, it's nice and shiny piece of metal. There is nothing behind it in way of cushioning or anything like that. Rubber roller on the back and aluminium crowned roller on the front. Looks quite nice. Looks a lot nicer than the Makita one, which when we take a look at that, a lot less room on the Makita one there for sliding the belt in and out. So rubber roller on the back, drop the tool, why don't you tools? And then the front roller, the aluminium one, pretty rough looking compared to the Hikoki one. Holy moly. Yeah. So anyway, they've sanded that round to try and get it all nice, but yeah, it's a bit rough looking. So on the Makita, we're a bit more old school here. We've got some cork going on underneath there, look, bit of cork. And this pad on the front is not stiff metal, can be turned around, put in either way as well. Double-sided, no, it's different on the other side. And this is sort of a rough surface, so you haven't got as much friction on there, I would think. Feels very, feels Teflon coated. Oh, look at all the stuff that's come off of my fingers just rubbing it in that short period of time. Holy moly. So friction-wise, this one might be doing a lot better, because you don't want too much friction. Ideally, you want no friction, but we'll know more about that once we start using the thing. The main body of the Makita is, of course, PA6 with 30% glass in that one. I can't see what it is on this one, but it looks similar, maybe only 15% glass. I'd have to probably open it up to find that one out. Right, what about the speeds of the belts? Well, this one is in feet per minute, whereas this one is in meters per second, just to make my life interesting. But I've done some calculations for you, and we'll put them up on the side of the screen here. Now, when I say Metabo or Hikoki, in most of the world, this would say Hikoki, as it does on the battery. And as you've already seen, the Hikoki batteries fit perfectly on the Metabo HPT and vice versa. They're exactly the same, it's just a different sticker and a different name written on there. Because Hikoki owned Metabo, and they thought that would be a better name for the North American market for some reason. Okay, well, I know the reason, but we won't go into that. So Metabo HPT takes exactly the same batteries as Hikoki tools do, and vice versa, but Metabo and Metabo HPT do not take the same batteries, okay? Metabo tools, the darker green ones, take CAS batteries, which are very different to these batteries. And so, don't get confused, okay? Metabo and Metabo HPT, not the same. Metabo HPT and Hikoki are the same. Catches a lot of people out. If you want to know more about that and why, check out that video up there and down in the description. But anyway, back to the speeds of the belts. The Hikoki is 1475 feet per minute, or that translates to about 7.5 meters a second. That's on the top speed. The lowest speed is 400 feet per minute, or about 2 meters per second. The Makita coming in at its lowest speed, also the same, around the 400 feet or 2 meters per second mark, but on top speed coming in at 7.8 meters a second, or 1535 feet per minute. So it's doing 60 feet more per minute than this one is, or about 0.3 of a meter, or 1 foot a second. So in theory, in a race, a drag race, this should win, but it will also come down to how much pressure is pushing down on the belt, to how much torque there is in the tool, how much it can overcome that pressure. So we'll know that when we start sanding and when we start racing them. So let's go do something. Each tool is on its top speed, setting 5. The batteries are on, freshly charged. We've got a 60 grit Makita belt on each tool, and I'll tell you what those two holes are about in a moment. Oh, better just do a sound test first, eh? Very quick break on the Metabo. Makita didn't really have one. I love taking shitty old bits of wood like this and seeing if I can make them look pretty. It's always interesting to know what's hidden underneath all the years of degradation. So let's take a look. First up, I'm going to start them without any dust collection, just to see how much crap flies out of here and how far it goes. It's a good way to test how good the dust extraction is on these things. Right, let's go. Holy moly. So there you go, you always want to use dust extraction with these things. Few seconds, the battery is now a brown battery, as is the tool. Good for the camera too. At least the Makita battery is on the front, so hopefully it won't get covered in so much rubbish. My arm still will though. Well, look how much cleaner the Makita is. And how much cleaner my arm is. Because that was firing that dust so much further away. It was going a good couple of meters. And it was sanding fast. And it could really feel the torque. It was sort of harder to control in a way because it just wanted to go for it. And the handle up the front there is much nicer. Anyway, let's try it on a bigger bit of wood with some dust extraction. So after that first short little test, how on earth did it get so much dust stuck on the bottom of the battery? So the Hikoki, filthy. The Makita, you would barely know it had been used. It was firing the dust so far away from it, plus the dust port is a lot further back, towards the back. This one is sort of in the middle, and doesn't fire it out very far by the looks. It seems to just go in every direction. If you were going to use it without dust extraction, get the Makita. But we'll use dust extraction or bags or something for the rest of the tests in this video because I don't want to be breathing all that shit in. But I guess to stop yourself getting covered in dust, you can use the elbow. Maybe it goes that way. There we go. Then it'll fire all the dust out the side. What are we doing here? Make sure you keep watching. Now, if you use Makita and you haven't got one of these, do yourself a favor. They come in both 40 volt and 18 volt. And they are awesome little units, especially if you like cleaning your tools or cleaning yourself off at the end of the day. Now, not a lot of dust coming off this one, but there's going to be a heap coming off the other one. Shit. Didn't push record, did a whole thing about cleaning this off. As you can see, it's nice and clean now with the blower. But I forgot to push record. Ugh. Really annoying when it's something you can't do again. Well, I can, but I have to get it all dirty again, won't I? And I can't be bothered doing that. Anyway, Hikoki and Metabo also make one of these, a little dust blower. It's a lot sort of smaller than this, not quite as grunty as this. But yeah, hopefully it'll get dirty again before the end of the video. So thankfully one of the myriad of Makita attachments does fit, so that's good. Unfortunately none of the Makita ones and none of the Milwaukee ones have got fit on the Hikoki, but we'll see how we go. I'll tape that up. Thanks for going past, Mr. Truck. And I've got the AWS chip in here now, so back automatically turns on. And we are gonna have a go at this skanky looking bit of pine here, which is treated but is covered in this sort of black moldy looking stuff and some white shit and just looks real awful. Unfortunately that stuff sort of gets into it too, so it goes down quite deep. But we'll see how we go, see if we can remove some of that. Well, that took that down super quick. That is nice. I'm super happy with that. Let's have a look at the Hikoki. So dust extraction wise, worked perfectly once you've got something stuck on there. Not leaving any dust anywhere, so that was nice. But it did feel to me like the Hikoki Metabo HPT, just not quite as powerful and not quite as smooth, just not quite as nice feeling. And like I say, I can feel the waves in it because it doesn't sit as nice. It's not weighted right, just as that tilt. And if you think that it was a different piece of wood or anything, it's the same exact piece of wood. Here's the Makita end, which might even feel smoother, which is weird. They're exactly the same belts on them. Yeah, it does feel nicer on this side, surprisingly. So the Makita just seemed to remove that quicker than the Metabo HPT, in my opinion, and just easier to keep level. But they will both get the job done and get it done quick, much quicker than a Ryobi or AEG or Milwaukee. I haven't tried the DeWalt, but I know that the Hikoki beats those other three, the TTI ones, hands down. And it looks like the Makita is going to beat the Metabo HPT and Hikoki as well. Now I've got a few more of these boards that I need to clean up, so seeing as this is a nice quick effective way of doing it, I will do that now, and we'll maybe get to see what the run time's like on both of these, because belt sanders do chew through the batteries. The AEG/rigid with a 60 grip belt. We'll just see how well it does here. Same sort of board. Then we'll do a stall test on all three of them. As you can see, much slower than the Metabo HPT and the Makita. Still got a long way to go there. You can feel it struggles a bit more keeping the belt speed up. Let's now see how hard it is to stall. Not too hard. But you're unlikely to be putting that much pressure on it when you're using it. But let's now take a look at the Hikoki. First, I'll just tidy this up so you can see how quick the Hikoki is. Bit harder to stall. Turn that off so you can hear me. Bit harder to stall than the AEG, but does a much better job of sanding. It is doing, however, what the Hikoki one did all through the video when I was making that, in that the tracking moves around quite a lot. Let's see if we can stall the Makita. Can't get it to stall. Oh man, it's taking some chunks out of there. Whoo, that's hot. I could not get that to cut out. I put all my weight on it like that. Not working. 3, 2, 1. Right. There's our winner right there. That's pretty much just proved that that is the best cordless belt sander around, because there ain't no way you're going to stall that by accident. Maybe on a lower amp hour battery, maybe like the 2 amp hour, or this is a very grunty battery. This puts out 2,100 plus watts. We do it with a 2.5 or a 2, we might be able to stall it. I'll try that. Now I could use a 2, but I've never actually ever seen anyone else with a 2 and they're not available in many places, so it makes more sense to go with what everyone uses for most stuff, and that's a 2.5. Great little batteries. Let's see how we go. Can we stall it? It's fully charged. Ugh. That took a bit, but we got there. Whew. That's got a fair heap of torque, that thing. Makita, I mean, I'm not surprised that they made a good sander, because that's one of their things that they do, right? Sanders and planers, they've always kicked ass, and it looks like that might be continuing. Anyway, let's do some actual work, eh? Get some of these boards cleaned up properly, see how long these batteries last. Makita just wants to shoot these boards off, even though they're pretty big, heavy boards. She's dead. The battery is done. The battery is hot. That is pretty warm. Probably the warmest I've felt one of these tabless batteries. It's flashing one green light. Let's go chuck it straight on the battery checker. See how hot it is. So we're probably somewhere in the 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes max since I took the battery off the tool. Let's chuck it on this checker. It should now read 1 charge on the first screen. 1 charge up there, top right corner, and completely depleted battery. Battery health still good. Internal temperature, there we go, 137 Fahrenheit or 59 degrees Celsius. I wish I had one of these battery checkers for every battery brand, it'd be so handy. 29.6 volts, completely depleted. So it's a 36 volt battery, 40 volt max. These get up to about 41 volts when they're fully charged. And as you can see, drop to just below 30 when they are depleted. Doesn't think it's had any bad temperature stuff going on. No, it hasn't been overloaded. All good. Now, I'm not going to be able to do that with the Hikoki to that level, unfortunately. But let's go and test the Hikoki, or Metabo HPT, should I say, and see how many boards that can sand. The Makita did about 6 full lengths of that 6x2, and they're 2.4 meter lengths, and it did about another 1 in all the other stuff, you know, the other little tests that I'd done. About, we'll call it another 1. At least another 1 really, but we'll call it 7. So 7 times 2.4 is 16.8 meters, 6 inches or 150 wide, 60 grit paper. Those were really badly grubby boards, as you saw. So let me know what you think about that for battery life down in the comments, and we're about to find out if the Hikoki or Metabo HPT is any better. We are down to 1 bar on the battery, and if we count it the same way as the Makita, saying it did about 1 of these beforehand, then we're up to 4. So it's got to do a lot on this last battery bar. One of the Makita boards was fairly good on one side, so I'm going to do a fairly nice one here so I don't have to sand so much, so it's about even test. In fact, this one looks like it's gonna, you know, it doesn't need much at all really. She's dead. 1 green flashing light. Heat wise, not too bad on the sides, but I know there's a lot of cushioning on the sides of these batteries. Now that bottom is pretty toasty. Unfortunately, I can't see what it's like on the inside. We can test it on the outside, but not the inside. Back to the bench. So this is the Makita on the left, which has been sitting here for quite some time now. You know, clearly cooled down. Reading highest temperature around 42 degrees. Let's just look at another battery here that hasn't been used, just sitting here on the bench. Can barely even see it. (22 to 23), the hottest on there, which is sort of room temperature. And the Hikoki just come off the tool a few minutes ago. 46 at its highest. Not that much hotter than the Makita really. The Makita was what? 42. Let's see if we can get it back there. 38. It might have been reading the edge. Yeah, 42. Might have been reading the edge of the Hikoki the first time. So 38 and 45, 46 on the Hikoki. So that doesn't really tell us much though, because we don't know what this one's like on the inside, and this one of course has been sitting here cooling down for quite some time. But on the outside it does feel hotter on the bottom than the Makita did, but not very scientific, I know. Right, what else have we got to talk about? They both have really good dust extraction. It may not look like it on the Hikoki / Metabo HPT at the moment. That's because I forgot to turn the vac on at one point and the dust was getting out around here. But up until that point, it did look good because I'd checked it just moments earlier. But the Makita, it barely looks like it's been used. Look at that. I mean, even where the dust is not sticking in there or anything. It's super good on the dust extraction. But they're both passable. So other things of note, differences between them. You can adjust the handle on the Makita. That was nice. It was good being able to put it right down the front because you could get extra pressure down. I did have to be careful though that I didn't tip it forward. Whereas on this one, the handle does not move. Moves on like the AEG and the Milwaukee ones and that, but not moving on the Metabo HPT. Now I know the the Hikoki and Metabo HPT fans, by this point, some of them will have already written it down below before they've watched the video, like people do. They'll be saying, hey, but you can use the Metabo HPT and the Hikoki with one of these monstrous monstrous adapters. Now, I'm not a big fan of this adapter just because it's so clunky. You've got this massive big brick in the middle of the lead. The thickness of the lead is absolutely huge, and this only comes directly out the end, so it doesn't work all that well on certain things. Like if you put that on here, it's going to give you endless runtime, but it is a little bit more cumbersome, of course. And there's also the problem of power, because most people are going to think, or a lot of people are going to think, putting this on here is going to give you more power than a battery. Wrong. The world doesn't work like that anymore. Batteries are now more powerful than what's coming out of your wall, because there's no limit on the amps that a battery can put out, whereas your household circuit has limits. Depending on what country you're in, it's going to be different, of course. But this thing here only rated to put out 1010 watts. So for a lot of tools, that's not going to be enough. Not really. I don't know what the rating of this particular sander is, because I can't find it on the Metabo HPT or the Hikoki New Zealand website. So if you know what it is, let me know down below. But there's a good chance it's going to be higher than what that is. That's 1010, and the battery we were using on it, this one, is over double that. This is twice as powerful as the power coming out of your wall. Just had a look and I can't find how many watts the Makita is either. Sometimes it's a bit tricky when the tools are new. There's not too many places you can look, so I can't find that out either. So a lot of people would be saying they'd want the Makita with one of these. Fair enough, but can't do it, not yet. But there is some other things the Makita can do that this one cannot. Let's take a look at those. Now, these two holes here, what are they for? Two threaded holes in the side. Well, you can thread some clamps in there, put your handle forward, flip your tool over, and you've now got a bench sander. How cool is that? Clamps on with the clamps that are held on here, go down, clamp onto your bench. You can then put a fence on here, so you've got something to work up against. And there we go, no need to buy a bench sander. Not only that, when it's flipped back up the other way, you can also get a shoe that goes around the base of it just for stability to stop any sideward motion, prevent digging in when you're sanding. I didn't find that was too big of a problem with this, certainly not compared to the Hikoki. The only time I had a problem with it is when I was trying to stall it and I was pushing down on it like hell. So both of those accessories are pretty cool, and I don't know if I would get the clamps because I've already got a bench sander, so I don't need it. But I like the idea of the shoe just to make sure you get a nice, flat, even surface when you're sanding, because when you do end up accidentally going like that and digging in, it leaves a big groove pretty damn quick, and it can take a long time to get rid of, or potentially completely ruin your workpiece. Now, of course, if you had the 5 or 8 amp hour battery, you have to pack up the tool a bit upside down, because else it's going to be like that, so it needs something under there. Just chuck a bit of wood or something under there. To be fair, you could almost use it just like that. I mean, it's fairly stable if you just sort of wedged a little wooden wedge under there so it didn't have any rock in it. There's not much there, so you could probably get away with it without the clamps just about, as long as it doesn't take off on you. So those are all optional accessories. You can of course get another replacement of this carbon-y, graphite-y pad thing that's on here, and the cork pad of course if they wear out on you. Hopefully I'll get a fair bit of whack out of them before I have to replace those. So yeah, I am liking this tool. I like it more than I thought I was going to, because I've had to play with a lot of cordless belt sanders and yeah, they're a bit nyeh. The Hikoki one was okay, but this one smashes all of them, which is good. 7 boards versus 5 boards with the Hikoki. Some of that may be down to the fact that I had to do it more with the Hikoki because it wasn't removing the material as quick as this. This is definitely quicker at removing material, feels nicer to use. It's got the AWS. Oh, but tools, what about the thing that Metabo has? Yeah, okay, another thing I forgot to mention. Let's put the Metabo back on the bench. Metabo has something similar to AWS, where you have your hose clipped on, you can strap something around your hose, or you can strap it around the tool, and when you pull the trigger on your tool, the vibration triggers off a Bluetooth device which will turn on either a Metabo vac that's, you know, got the other bit on the other end for it to turn on, or you can have it so you can plug it into the wall and plug in another vac into that, and it'll turn on any shop vac that is a corded vac. Now I've had hit and miss when testing that. I'm not even sure if I ended up putting the video in the end because it was so problematic, but a lot of people love it. It does give you the option of using different products, so you can use it on multiple different devices. It doesn't have to be just a Metabo HPT. You can put it on any vac and any tool. So it's quite cool in that regard, but it's just not quite as elegant as just pulling the trigger with this. As long as you've got a chip in there, your vac starts up. It's very cool, turns off automatically as well. Maybe that ugly looking roller under here helped with the tracking, because the tracking is way better on the Makita than it is on any of the other ones I've tried. Way better than this. So I guess that's about it. The Makita, I love it. I love it more than I thought I was going to. Well, it's because you're biased. I love it when people say, you know, oh, you're biased towards one particular thing, because I get people say, you know, I've had people say I'm biased towards DeWalt, believe it or not. If you say something against the tool that they like the most, all of a sudden you're biased. They don't seem to think they're biased for saying it, but hey, whatever. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Cheers for watching. Oh, there was one more thing, wasn't there? The other thing I just thought of a moment ago, because I should have put this up against this, because that would have been a good test, eh? Although I just picked it up and realised there's something wrong with the trigger. Wasn't like that before. The spring's gone in the trigger. Gonna have to pull her apart. I guess that's another video for another channel. Thanks for watching. Was there anything else that I've forgotten? Oh yeah, you guys wanted to see me race them. Now that might be a bit tricky. What the? Because they're going to want to tend to lean to the side, I think, and turn. They're not going to go in a straight line because of all the junk hanging off the side of them. You know, they're going to end up going, especially this one, it's going to end up going like that, I reckon. How do I get these to run dead straight? Do we put them in a channel? Give me a minute. Right, we've got a regulation track set up here, which is of course 7.2 meters or 23.75 feet. And we're going to do a bunch of races here. We'll start on the lowest speeds and we'll ramp it up. Each of the sanders you're going to see is running a 60 grit tyre. Let's see how they go. Makita versus Hikoki, fresh tank of battery on each one. Well, we had a bit of a tyre blowout here on the Hikoki. She has shredded that tyre good and proper. Belt's ruined. So we'll give her another one. Go again. So the Hikoki won that last race there, but I think it was pretty clear to all observers here today that the Makita was the king of the racetrack on this occasion. AEG doing commendably well. Hikoki / Metabo HPT just having a few issues, having a blowout and a couple of stalls. But the Makita comes through to win the day.